Good morning, everyone. Are we ready to start? Thank you. Thank you very much. So this morning, we will have an open discussion with the founders of traditional architecture schools in Europe, already existing or on the verge of being born. And we have 4 invites, each one with his own school, very different, all of them, but somehow complementing each other. And in order to be able to have this open discussion, I asked them to prepare a small material to show what they do, because otherwise we cannot know what are their particularities. And we will start with Nadia. Nadia, Naty, louder? Okay. So we will start with Nadia, Nadia Everard, which is the founder of La Table Ronde Architecture, initially founded in Belgium. Now they move in Alsace, France. She's also the chair of INTBAU Belgium. And together with Noé, the founders of this fantastic La Table Ronde Architecture. So Nadia, please present your school. Thank you.
This is the next one. Okay.
Yes, and make sure you speak.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Thank you again for the invitation to come in this fantastic place. That's better? Okay. Need to see my text. No, don't worry. That's okay. So, the Round Table of Architecture, or in French, La Table Ronde de l'Architecture, is a non-profit association dedicated to the study, teaching, and defense of traditional architecture. Our association was founded in 2020 in Brussels by myself, together with Noé Morin. Since then, we have continued to develop first in Bruges, and now since 2026 through a French branch established in the village of Westhofen in Alsace, where our activities are now permanently based. But before speaking about what we do, it is important for us to clarify what our association means by traditional architecture. We are not referring to a style. We're Baroque, classical, Gothic, or else. And we are not referring to a historical period. What we call traditional architecture is first and foremost a method. It is the method of the architect who, when faced with a project, begins by asking simple but essential questions. What is the program? What materials are available? What techniques can be used? What is the topography? What is the climate? It is also the method of the builder who, in a spirit of humility, choose to rely on accumulated knowledge and tradition rather than an individual invention alone. The architecture we defend is therefore an architecture freed from dogma, whether it comes from the rigidity of modern doctrine, such as the Athens Charter, or from the strict formalism of classical canons. We believe architecture should not be reduced to a set of rules. Once freed from the pursuit of style, architecture can return to what truly matters: practical, material, and social realities. We understand architecture as a technique, a form of knowledge that combines skill, craft, and reason. In this sense, architecture becomes meaningful when its elements are arranged logically and when form is in clear correspondence with structure. It is at that moment that the eye can recognize in a built work a sense of clarity, balance, and necessity. What pleases the eye, first and foremost, is what satisfies reason. The meaning of our action, starting from the observation that contemporary architecture is increasingly reduced to a standardized product, our association seeks to understand the cause of this situation. We respond in 2 complementary ways: through reflection with our written work and ideas, and through practice with our teaching activities. So those are some texts that are freely access on our website. I bring you to have a look at them. Most of them are translated in English also, and in French, of course. Our schools in Alsace, Conques, so in France, and Bruges in Belgium, bring together students from many different countries. There, they learn hand drawing as a tool for understanding, not only for representation. They study historical buildings, directly train their judgments, and develop an awareness of proportion, structure, and materials. They also learn practical skills, timber framing, stone carving, stone masonry, brick masonry, lime work, wattle and daub, iron work, roofing, and much more. Our aim is to train builders who are competent and therefore free. We believe that only through this combination of intellectual understanding and practical experience can we begin to reconnect with an architecture that is once coherent, humane, and durable. Our pedagogy. Today, in most schools, there is a distance between design and construction. The focus is often on concepts, image, and digital tools. Students learn how to produce architectural objects as representation, often made for presentation. And drawing, which used to help us understand structure and space, is often replaced by software and rendering. As a result, architecture has become disconnected from physical reality. This also affects the role of the architect. We often find ourselves between two positions. On one side, the engineer focused on structure, performance, and efficiency. On the other side, the architect, as a designer or artist, focused on form and expression. But architecture cannot be reduced to one or the other. It needs both. It needs technical understanding, but also cultural and spatial thinking. In the past, architects worked much closer to craftsmen. As a matter of fact, they were craftsmen until they began to wear white gloves, take up a compass and a ruler, and became intellectual, bent over a desk. Today, this link between the architecture and the craft is broken. Construction is highly industrial, divided in many specialist systems. It becomes difficult for one person to understand the whole process. Construction is based on industrial systems, standard materials, and global production chain. These bring efficiency and scale, but it also increases the distance between design and construction. Buildings are often designed far from where they are built, and the architect may no longer fully understand how they are made or how they will age over time. We are not calling for a return to the past. We are not rejecting modern tools or techniques. What we are asking for is a return to principle. Architecture should start from real condition, the site, the climate, the materials available, the use, and the people who will live in the building. Form should not come first as an abstract idea. It should come as a result of this condition. Some initiatives already go in this direction. Workshops, summer school, hands-on training, try to bring students closer to construction and materials. I'm thinking of what our Iberian friends are doing in Portugal and Spain, or of the Scuola della Bunești in Romania, but many, many more. These experiences are important because they reconnect design with reality, but they are small compared to mainstream education. This is why we believe education must change deeply. Architecture should not be split between theory and practice, or between design and construction. These parts must be taught together. We need to understand how buildings are designed, how they are built, and how they exist over time. In order to put this principle into practice within an institution that would teach architecture in a lasting way, we have decided to embark on an ambitious project, the Westhoffen School of Architecture and Craft. Since 2020, we have been running a series of summer schools and workshops in traditional architecture and crafts. This course, lasting from 2 to 7 weeks, have brought together more than 200 participants from 39 countries. Each year, we receive far more applications than places available, often more than 100 applications for 15 to 13 selected students. What is striking is not only the number of participants, but their diversity. They come from all over Europe and far beyond, from Japan to Jordan, and from very different backgrounds: architecture, urbanism, philosophy, art, and craftsmanship. They also cover a wide range of age, from 16 to over 60 years old. This diversity shows something important. There is a real and growing interest in learning architecture in a more direct, grounded, and meaningful way. From this experience, a clear idea has emerged: the need to create a permanent school. The Westhoffen School will not only be a school of architecture, but a center for training in traditional building crafts. Second, a place for the restoration and transmission of architecture heritage. Third, a place for research and reflection. And fourth, a living international community. And finally, a place open to the public through conferences, evening courses, open days, and visits. By the way, you are all warmly welcome to our open day on July 19. It will be an opportunity to gather among friends and colleagues, to discover the work of our students and to discover this fantastic region. About the region, so those are some of the workshops we've organized in Alsace in 2024. So the region, why Westhoffen, why Alsace? So this choice is of course not random. And this is because of this summer school that we've organized in 2024 in Bar. So it's, let's say, the center of Alsace. It was really a turning point. It allowed us to build stronger relationship with local craftsmen, institution, and material producer. It also gave us a deep understanding in the richness of the regional building culture. I don't know if you see that well. So Westhoffen is the red. Does that work? It's just here, east of France, very close to Belgium, Luxembourg, and Germany. And then that's Strasbourg. I don't know if some of you have visited Strasbourg, which is a fantastic city. And Westhoffen is on the west of Strasbourg, 20 minutes by car, along the Vosges mountain. And so Westhoffen has, the municipality is this area here. It's a fantastic village with the first settlement in the 9th century. But most of the remainings are from the 13th and 14th century, and the architecture is mostly 17th and 18th century. The forest here is very important for the village, because that's why the village is still very healthy. They sell the wood. It's an important forest within the whole region, because it's the forest who allowed the cathedral to be built in a way. So all the wood that was used for the Cathedral of Strasbourg, a fantastic flamboyant Gothic cathedral, came from that forest of oak trees. And also this little place here, that's a stone quarry that was also used for the cathedral, pink sandstone quarry with fantastic veins, yellow and pink veins. But now it's closed. Maybe in the future it will reopen. Let's see. Around the village, it's the surrounding is with vineyards and orchards, and it's the capital of cherry in France. That's very, very. It was made very recently because there was a sickness with vineyard in the 60s, and so they replaced the whole thing with cherry trees. So it's a beautiful. Sometimes people they call it the Toscane of France because the landscape is really beautiful. So the site itself is an old 17th century farmstead organized around a courtyard. Rather than preserving it as a frozen object, the intention of the association is to carefully transform it into a school while respecting its history and material. Identity, it is a place shaped by time, but also one that holds strong potential for a new use. So, oh, sorry. Yep. So the school is here. It's that block that you see here, just outside the old city wall. This city wall was built in the 14th century. There is still some remains on the north side. The facade that you see here, that's the building here on the south of the block. So as you can see, the courtyard is surrounded by buildings, and we intended to inhabit all those buildings with different use for the school. This house here will become what we will call the house of the builders, so the house of the students with their accommodation and everything they need to survive. And that's this building here, that level, we've decided that it will become a library and a drawing room with a fantastic carpentry. We will have workshop on the ground floors of most buildings. That's one view from the corner here. So here you can really have a sense of the architecture of the village. So it's mostly timber frame building. The whole of the block, everything, so all the wood that you see is oak, and that's really reflecting the richness of the village in the 16th and 17th century. I said, so it was a farmstead, so a place, a butchery in that case. And also there used to be a little bakery here. So that was one of the entrance through the buildings. I currently live, we will continue to live here in that house, but there is several buildings, so we live on site. And the ground floor, and then there is another floor above that has been already transformed into a library. So the program for the site includes a large drawing room, as I said, library, lecture rooms, workshop for timber framing, woodwork, stone carving, stone engraving, stone and brick masonry, earth and lime work, also a ceramic workshop, as well as offices for teacher and students, and of course student accommodation. So we hope to host 20 students by 2032. If everything goes well. And they will also be at the place of the old butchery where Mieke Bos, that some of you know, is very important for INTBAU. She has helped us so much, and she still does. She helped us to wash all the windows and doors of the student house. This place, so the old butcher shop, will become a cafe for the students, but also for the village. A place where we can host conferences, but where the students can also gather when they need to read, for example. The teaching itself will combine theory and practice, as I said. Students will study architecture, history, philosophy, geometry, and drawing, while also learning construction technique directly on sites. So first, of course, and up until 2032, the students will work on the school, so that's going to be their project. So the whole school project is really pedagogical in terms of construction. The goal is not to separate thinking from making, but to bring them together in a single process. The project will be developed in successive phases. So this year, so in 2026, the process begins with the decontamination of the main building. So that's some of the picture you see here of this building over here. So it seems that everything is perfect. It's very charming. But the problem is that currently, like all the renders that you see, this is cement render. So we have to get rid of everything because it creates problem inside the buildings, in the masonry structure on the ground floor, but also in the infill. In French we say miroir of the timber truss. So that's one thing. And then you have to imagine this is rural architecture. So inside those buildings, there is nothing really left. There was really nothing. And lots of additions have been made in the 60s with concrete. So we have to get rid of those. Also, lots of rock wool that we got rid of, metal structure, cement, and so on. So all those materials that are, not helping the building to breathe and kind of damage the building. So that's the first steps, and we did that with with our alumni. So most of our students from previous year, they came from February to now, every weekend at the place to help us to do demolition work. We got really a lot of help. Sometimes it was really to think about the school projects, and other time it was mostly to work on demolition. Also sometimes to do some measure drawing. Of course, we have to measure everything on site, because the idea is that this summer the students are going to design with us the school project. Of course, we have an idea of what we want to do, but we really want it to be a collaborative project, so to do the plans, to do the drawings with the students. We are using, so for the restoration, either like a green wood, so a new wood, oak wood, or like reused wood. So we have lots of help from neighboring village who are giving stone, giving wood. We have collaboration with stone quarry. So there is a lot of enthusiasm behind this project within the region. People really see that it can bring something positive for their economy, but also in terms of culture. And Alsace was really also chosen because the architectural identity is very strong, but it's not folkloric. They live with it. Everyone has a wooden house. They restore it. Sometimes they build new one. It's not something strange. It's part of their life. So some of the workshops that we are organizing this summer, stone engraving. So the students of that workshop, they are going to engrave all the panels that will be on next to the doors of the rooms. Stone carving, the students here are going to rebuild a pink sandstone staircase. Carpentry, they are going to do some restoration, but also to build lots of elements that will be needed for the whole construction of the school. And then traditional building techniques. In this, I mean water and daub, for example. Some would say Roman concrete, but lime-crete, lime renders, and this will be done with Jacques Bruderer, who is like a fantastic specialist of those techniques in Alsace, and who is teaching a lot. Most of the teacher also. Some have already teach, and for some it's the first time. So we are really trying to push craftsmen to teach and to share their knowledge, so it can pass on. Here we have two of our alumni, Jacques Anscombe from UK, stone carver, but recently he with Lovis, who was there at the summer school here. In Frascati, both of them, they enroll into classical master studio in London, but they are also very interested into craft. Lovis used to be a stone mason, and Jack is still a stone carver, so they want to do both and learn from each other also. This is a picture of the attic that will host, it's much longer, that will host the library and drawing room. And so, of course, one of the first steps is to measure everything and to think about how we can keep as much as possible of the structure, but make this place livable. So it's, sometimes those are really challenged for architecture students to think about the design. So this is the state of the house of the students, the future house of the builders. So you can see the construction techniques, so timber frame buildings, timber frame structure, and filled not with water and daub, but filled with pink sandstone and lime mortar. So we have to restore all of this. But it feels a bit chaotic, but I can tell you that in general the structure is very healthy. It's mostly cleaning. It takes a lot of time because you have to imagine we have to get rid of thousands of nails, lots of electricity cables, and lots of renders from, the first one dating from the end of the 17th century and up until now. So a very interesting case of archaeology somehow. That's a picture of us during the first workshop here with some of the alumni, but also a bit of family helping. That's the bridge that links the house in which I live with the House of the Students. I'm going to come back to my text just to make sure I don't understand anything, I don't forget anything. So between 2027 and 2030, the project will really enter in its main phases of restoration and transformation, so of each of the building, and of course progressively, and also depending on the level of urgency, but also the needs we have. Of course, like the association is in our budget right now, like accommodation is a big part, so we want to reduce this for the students. So our main aim, like right now, is to transform the House of the Students into something in which they can really live, so we can reduce that from their fees and make the fees much more accessible to everyone, because this is very important for us. We don't want to become a private school, you know, for the elite. We want it to be accessible to everyone from any background, any age, any country. And with that, we will need at some point to become public and get the different accreditation, certification to be able at one day, you know, in a few years, to be a university in France. There is another architecture university in Strasbourg, which is working completely differently. We are not opposed to them. We are going to work with them at some point and trying to enter into the university system with them. That's going to be much more easy for us to get accreditation. Because students, I can say that in a lot of countries in Europe now are more and more interested into traditional architecture, but via the subject of crafts. So this for us in traditional architecture can really be, you know, a door, an entrance. Yeah. So finally, from 2030 to 32, we hope to reach the operational stage of the project as a permanent school with the implementation of a full academic program lasting 1 to 3 years, taught in both French and English before going into the 5-year program for university. Again, please join us on the 19th if you can, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Nadia, for absolutely amazing presentation. And I can certify that all you saw, it's even more beautiful and more exciting, because I was there at a meeting in March when Nadia asked a lot of architects to give some advice. We did a brainstorming, and I think it has a fantastic potential. And don't forget, all they did by now was with the participation of alumni or other volunteers. And they also have an open donation link, which I think it's still working. So for anyone who wants to help them set up this first stage of the school, it's still open. Thank you. So we are going now forward with Matthew Hardy, which is a senior lecturer at the University on Urbanism, the King's Foundation, also in London. And he is, in fact, the founder of INTBAU UK. He was part of the team who set it up, so we are all stepping on the trace that Matthew designed for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm waiting for some slides. Thank you, and that's extremely kind. I always like to precise the founder of INTBAU tag, because I was employed to found INTBAU by its steering committee, which consisted of Robert Adam, Alden Eng, Arne Sodal, and a host of others. So, you know, this is a work of many hands. As soon as my slides arrive, I would like to talk about the experience of both the King's Foundation and and INTBAU over 35 years. And I've brought some paper copies of this report, only 5, but I will show you, you can download it, and a link will appear on screen in due course. But I think I should start by talking about the principle of harmony, which underlies all of the Foundation's work, as we'll see as soon as the slides arrive. Because we see architecture as part of a wider system which is broken. And harmony essentially brings us back to the understanding that as humans we are part of nature and not apart from nature. So we see this as the moment of disjuncture in which architecture lost its way, when we started to imagine that we were above nature and not a part of nature. So, a short pause while slides appear. I think I would like also to talk, of course, about our royal founder in this process, and then about some of our work over the last 35 years, and then our work today. But I would also be finishing with some advice to those starting, unsolicited advice, I think, the worst kind of advice, perhaps, to those who are starting architecture schools. Now, I saw my slides this morning, so I know they're there. It's always a test to stand up and speak without any slides or any notes. So I shall continue to do that. Okay, in 1 minute, okay. So I think, you know, perhaps I could talk a little bit about my own process, which I in fact took away from the presentation, because I feel, you know, I owe a great deal to Leo. As an architecture student in a conventional architecture school in the 1970s, I became aware that some interesting things were happening in Europe, and I studied in Australia, in a small city in Australia, and I subscribed to Architectural Design magazine, and Leo was a frequent contributor in the 1970s to this magazine. And I saw from these early ideas a real challenge to the whole process of the way that we were being taught architecture. And so it was, I think, a really influential moment in my development as an architect. And I sought out an architect in Adelaide in Australia who understood in even a small sense vernacular architecture. He was architect Robert Dixon, who had studied in Italy in the early 1950s in Milan. He practiced in a form which you could describe as a kind of rationalist vernacular. Of course, he didn't use moldings or the orders, but because of having studied vernacular architecture so rigorously, this was in the way he thought about it. And I also observed, having come into contact with the work of Christopher Alexander, that he was using a pattern language to produce his own work. He had a series of rational constructional systems derived from vernacular architecture, which he used to generate the design for every project. So he was not, as the modernist architects would have you, going back to a tabula rasa at the beginning of every project, but rather building on an established series of rational and deeply embedded structural logics. So I think I've probably reached the end of what I can say without slides, but I can see somebody. Perhaps we should go to the next speaker, or is it a more general problem with slides? Okay, yeah, we'll be ready in a moment. Yes, so shall we have some questions? Yeah.
Until this problem is fixed.
Yes, Lucien.
Yeah, so Nadia, congratulations. Do you hear me or? Take the microphone.
Take the microphone.
Okay, so Nadia, so congratulations. This is such a fabulous, really project, beautiful and so promising. And I know that there are other places in the world where people, you know, fortunately there are similar endeavors and people try, and, you know, like Ettore has mentioned, you know, this is really such an essential task, because if without education we are kind of really always hitting a wall. But even with education, I know that many of these initiatives, they always kind of, then when it comes to, you know, accreditation becomes this big issue, because how are you entering, how are you legitimizing, how are you kind of officializing and making this education part of a normal in the normal educational kind of system as an alternative. So why, yeah. And I think I was wondering, are you kind of thinking of applying for accreditation, or is there any chance you can, you know, like you trying to work with the university system, is there any chance, or have you already contacts, or are you having feedback, so which maybe even at European level? So that's my question.
Thank you. Yes, and I think it's the case for lots of countries in Europe. Maybe my answer will be similar for other countries. So it's 5 years of study. If you want to become an architect, then you have to do 1, 2, sometimes 3 years of practice to get the title of architect. So if we want our school to be accredited in France, in our case, we will have first, and that's going to be for next year, to get accreditation, which is called Calliope. So this is for all the craft workshop and also some of our theoretical courses to get them accredited, so they will become professional courses, training, in which professional can enter. It's paid by the state also, that's very important. And then maybe 1, 2 years where we will have to show that we have created link with the region, with the Ministry of Education, with different university collaborating, bringing those students in our school. And then we can start having discussion to build like a proper curriculum of more than 2 years, because we will start with 1, then we will go to 2, but it's true that at the beginning it's going to be mostly, as we are doing now, it's going to be mostly short-term training, working how in the way we are doing now, so with scholarships, so because it's not paid by the states yet, so to make it open to everyone, we have to find sponsor who wants to help, you know, the students who have lots of competence but not the money to enter the school. So you know, it's going to take a few years, but we know that we can achieve it. It's just going to take a few years, yeah.
Thank you very much. I hope we will have time for discussion after to develop all together this subject. And now
Thank you very much, and I'm very reassured to see slides have appeared now. So I want to talk about our education. I want to talk first, well, I've already spoken about His Majesty and the principle of harmony which guides all of our work. That we are not apart from nature, but a part of nature. I want to talk a little bit and very briefly about the King and his role as the Prince of Wales from 1969 to 2022, our education programs that we've run in the last 35 years, and I would say, please accept them as 35 years of imperfections, because we don't pretend to have the answers. And then what we're doing now, and some lessons, as I said, unsolicited lessons from my experience in working for 26 years with this amazing organization. So the King's Foundation, we say people, places, planet in harmony, founded by His Majesty the King in 1990. Building sustainable communities and transforming lives is our aim. This is our headquarters at Dumfries House in Scotland. And we work around the world to create sustainable communities through placemaking and to transform lives through practical and education and training. The principle of harmony, and I won't go into enormous amount of detail because there's a book, Harmony, by His Majesty the King and others, but it is essentially the belief that we, as I reiterate, a part of nature. And so we need to, as the custodians of nature, as somebody said yesterday, we're the only animal that can do what it wants. We have the duty of custodianship of the rest of the world. And I think if I can give a message to our younger practitioners, your duty will be ecological stewardship, because we have a broken world and it's your duty and responsibility to fix it. And I think this is what the principle of harmony means to me. So let's go back a bit to 1969, when His Majesty became Prince of Wales. He pretty soon established a role. It's a role which in Britain has no constitutional function. It's not recognized. It has no political role. So Princes of Wales, or the kings or queens in waiting, have to invent a role. And he invented a role in architecture and the environment. And I would say principally in the environment, and seeing architecture as part of the environment and the human habitat as being separate from the habitat of animals in nature. And you can see even as early as 1970, here he is talking about architecture and urbanism in terms of habitats and in terms of a deep a belief in the ecological role of architecture. 1984, very famously, he was invited to speak at the 150th anniversary of the Royal Institute of British Architects, and chose to very, I think, cheekily point out that there was a terrible problem in architecture, and that the buildings constructed in that time were really problematic. And he used this word to describe the extension to the National Gallery, which we can see at the left there by Arons, Burton and Korolek, as a carbuncle on the face of a much-loved and elegant friend. And this was received, of course, with outrage, but later spawned something called the Carbuncle Cup, awarded to the ugliest building in Britain by public vote. So you can see, by careful choice of language, you can propagate your ideas very far. And then in 1987, he spoke out against proposals to replace this development, post-war development around St. Paul's Cathedral. And to cut a long story short, we got a much better development around St. Paul's Cathedral through a series of steps, because nothing's ever easy or quick or comes out perfectly, as I think others have said. They then produced a book and a TV series. You can find this on YouTube. A TV series, very old-fashioned looking now. But the book is readily available secondhand, translated into many languages usefully. And then, of course, all of this changed when he became king. His mother, Queen Elizabeth II, famous for never expressing an opinion in her life, but that's because she became Queen of England very early on in her life. Of course, our king has acceded to the throne at an advanced age, so he has this long history of expressing ideas, but really the role of monarch means he can never express an opinion again. So it's through the foundation that he expects the work to carry on. There's the 35 years. You can download it or find it on our website under resources if you're interested. But it really describes everything that has been done from 1990 to 2025. So I want to talk about education programs. And initially, like so many of you, and it's so joyous to see that INTBAU has at least a dozen summer schools every year all around the world, because summer schools are really where, as young people, we encounter challenging ideas, I think. And summer schools, so many of you I know from my long association, attended one or other of these summer schools. And I found the ones that I attended, the last three, I was a bit slow on the uptake, that you could actually go on these summer schools and that they would pay for you to go. But I attended the last three. I found these absolutely transformative, working on urban design alongside in a form of teaching which we know by the technical term cognitive apprenticeship, working alongside people with more experience in order to solve a problem. A very strong way of learning that I urge you all to consider. But this was followed very quickly by the foundation of the Prince of Wales's Institute of Architecture in Regent's Park. Here's the speech announcing the inauguration of the Institute. And again, talking about nature and the environment and reverence for natural surroundings. You can see this is the driving force behind all of these ideas, and later summed up in the book on harmony, which is now the principle that underlines our work. Here's some of the early build projects. This was at the time of the Wende, with the fall of the Iron Curtain. Some very interesting people came from Eastern Europe. A lot of our students came on scholarships from Eastern Europe, from Romania, from east of Germany, and so on, from Poland. Imre Makovic came and worked with students to build this incredible expressionist structure. The institute was housed in an old kindergarten in Regent's Park. Linoleum floors, nothing very exciting, nothing as grand or as beautiful as the building we're in today. So you're from modest beginnings, and I think you can probably see there somewhere in the front when I had hair back in the day. And every year the students produced a build project, which they designed themselves and built. I'm so delighted to see from Nadia's presentation that young people are still building green oak frames with pegs. This is the way you learn geometry and construction at the same time, and the constructional geometry, which is so different from a solid geometry. And then we moved to Shoreditch in 2000, amalgamating with a series of other charities. The Urban Villages Forum, also founded in 1992, the Prince's School of Traditional Arts, which I'll mention in a bit, an organization called Regeneration Through Heritage that worked with communities to bring large, typically industrial buildings back into life. And we moved to Shoreditch, which is just north of the City of London, into this old warehouse in March 2000. Of course, events, and I'm leaving out a lot of our history, but 2022, based in London, we now have 3 centres. In our building in Shoreditch, we have the Architecture and Urban Design team, Heritage and Regeneration. We work on patronage projects, which are projects for the 400 charities of which His Majesty is patron, and international work around the world, principally with countries which are members of the Commonwealth of Nations. The King's Foundation School of Traditional Arts is based in London, in Shoreditch, incorporating the Visual Islamic and Traditional Arts School. It offers Master's, Master of Philosophy and PhD degrees awarded by the University of Wales through an external validation system. I would strongly recommend you to consider external validation system. Don't reinvent what you don't need to reinvent, and don't go through the agony of registering as a university if you don't need to. And I'll come back to that in my unsolicited advice section. And we have they have international centres in several countries. And of course, INTBAU is based in Charlotte Road in Shoreditch, as I'm sure you know. And I should say that my mother suggested we incorporate environment into the name INTBAU, so it would have been INTBAU. But we didn't get there. The name INTBAU had stuck by the time we thought of that. So here we are in Shoreditch. It's a converted warehouse, converted by Matthew Lloyd Architects for us along ecological principles with a natural ventilation system using stacks, passive ventilation stacks. We have acquired a lease on this building in Chelsea as part of the Chelsea Barracks development. Richard Rogers' scheme demolished this building. Local people were outraged. The then Prince of Wales told the Qataris that local people were outraged with his scheme. It was not the King or the Prince of Wales complaining directly, but simply representing the people, as he had done with Trafalgar Square and as he had done with St. Paul's Cathedral, bringing the voice of the population to the ears of people who would be able to change. So this building was saved. It's now a listed building, listed because it has the monuments to common soldiers, very unusual inside it. Most monuments in churches are to generals, but this one has monuments to private soldiers, and that was to warrant its listing, apart from the fact that it's a really fine essay in neo-Florentine Romanesque kind of hybrid style. And we use that as exhibition and teaching space. Here's our Oxford class listening to Professor Susan Parham. And we also have this fantastic building, Trinity Buoy Wharf in Leamouth, which is used for mainly very rough buildings. Are used for the crafts training. Some of the Royal Drawing School also uses this space. This is the centre of the Trinity Buoy organisation established by Henry VIII to mark ports and approaches to ports. This is the first electric lighthouse in the world, which remains on site. And we also have inherited through the amalgamations that happened at the time of the accession to the throne to a series of extraordinary buildings around the world, not only Highgrove, His Royal Highness's home for many years, but Dumfries House, which was saved from being having its collection dispersed. The king put together a bid of 45 million to save it for the nation, raising funds. Recently, it has the biggest collection of Chippendale furniture in the world, one of the pieces of which was recently valued at £25 million, so you can see the house was a bargain. It's not only a stately home, which is now which was previously closed to the public, but also an engine for regeneration of this region of former coal mining, very deprived part of southeastern Scotland. And we have there a series of education and training facilities, which I'll talk about. We inherited a swimming pool in New Cumnock and Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother's castle, and also this station in Ballater, which was built for Queen Victoria. And I'm nearing the end. So we have a design team which does design around the country. This is our most recent project, Nansledden in Cornwall, in which Leo was involved as an advisor. A bit more of our work in Cornwall. Essentially, by far the vast majority of our work is vocational, building crafts and textiles for the next generations of practitioners and school students, kindergarten to year 12. 12 to 15,000 students a year pass through Dumfries House doing vocational training. But I want to talk for the rest of this about academic education. The building crafts program, very importantly, we have so many listed buildings and so few people able to restore them. The students do a live build project, that's one of the earlier live builds, and then they're allowed to work on listed buildings such as Lincoln Cathedral here in the bottom right. We still run a summer school, I'm very pleased to say, not up to probably as exciting as some of the INTBAU summer schools, but a summer school which all of our craft students attend. And we have recently teamed up with a whole lot of very interesting producers and designers to focus on textiles, because this is an area in which the UK does a lot of design but doesn't manufacture much. So, coming to the conclusion, academic programs. All of these are, apart from the King's Foundation, are collaborative programs. The King's Foundation School of Traditional Arts, founded in 1984 by Keith Critchlow at the Royal College of Arts, and migrated in its history to the King's Foundation, offers, as I said, master's and doctoral degrees in traditional fine arts from around the world, and PhD students. I've been an examiner there for 2009, and members of my academic team can supervise PhD students if any of you are looking forward and thinking to the future. We have a team now led by Dr. Simon Sadinsky, my boss, who got his PhD while I was working for him. His specialty is urban studies, sense of place and belonging, as people have talked about. I'm architecture, urban history, urbanism, placemaking and sustainability. And then Dr. Sidney S. Mercer, Dr. Wilfred Middleton, and recently Dr. Raluca Matei and Dr. Catherine Berthon, each with their own specialties and working on various research programs. And we essentially collaborate with universities to deliver aspects of the courses which we have a cognate in, which we are specialists and have specialist knowledge in. So the main one is with Oxford, but we are also attached to Oxford through the Department for Continuing Education and through Kellogg College, with Cambridge University, a program which is starting later this year, with Swansea University, and a whole lot of research collaborations. Oxford is the one we've been doing since I started in 2010, MSc in Sustainable Urban Development. We developed the course and took it to Oxford. It's a 2-year part-time master's. And we're represented from top to bottom in the organization and management of the course. So these universities are often willing to work for you. You don't have to become a university. You can input the bits which you are specialized in. Our students are typically mid-career professionals. We don't hope to convert them all to traditional architecture, but the spark will catch in some of them and go out into the wider world. And our weeks in London are using the city as a case study, and we work with people who really know London, like the former city planner, Peter Rees, on the right there. In future, we will be offering short courses, and we are already offering these short online courses on Thursday nights, and others are possible. With Kellogg College, separate from the university, we have an association with it. We have a joint venture called Global Centre on Healthcare and Urbanisation, which does research, report what creates healthy cities from 2022, and does regular public events. And we welcome proposals for these. We're always looking for themes and challenges, as you can see. And finally, we've been running a summer school in Venice with the European Cultural Academy. But currently, for 4 years, we're currently looking for a new partner for that. And we got the students every year to look at the artificial island of Tronchetto and imagine how it should be transformed for a sustainable future. So, the University of Cambridge, our first venture since the 90s into architectural education. It's a Master of Studies in Architecture, part-time, to 3 years. Formerly an architectural apprenticeship, and will be launched as a part-time academic program. Cambridge have been very, very cautious in launching this, and they said, well, if you can recruit enough students, you can have more of a say in it, and we've recruited more than enough students, I'm pleased to say, on the latest report. So extremely strong registrations for a start in October this year. So at Swansea University, we helped start this course on international engineering management for international development, and we teach community engagement, which underlies the principles of all of our work. And then we have research collaborations with a whole range of other universities. And I find lots of places really want to hear from you. Don't imagine that we have to create our own ivory tower. We have to go out and talk to the world. Here I am talking in Grenoble at a conference. You know, you won't necessarily receive an enthusiastic response, but you'll plant the seed of understanding with people. And you'll find interesting things like Grenoble hosts Cristea, the world authority on, Francophone authority on earthen construction. We've been working with University College London for years and did a brilliant conference in 2024 on gentrification in London. So you can explore subjects which are challenging and topical, I think, with other institutions. And finally, on academic work, this journal, which is, don't found a journal unless you really, really want to do a lot of work. Because it's one of those things that one would never do if one knew what was involved. But here we are. It is still going since 2008, 4 issues a year, and an absolute mountain of work always. So, and finally, we work with the University of the Built Environment. You can see its previous branding as University College of Estate Management there, but we did their most popular course. It's a free online course on traditional urbanism called Sustainable Urban Design, and featuring a lot of images from our work and that of others. And they're also working on this course for rapid planning for developing countries. So, finally, unsolicited advice. Don't just talk to ourselves. We have 40 lovely people in this room, but there's a whole world out there. Go into the lion's den and challenge them, as His Majesty did at the RIBA. But learn to speak the language of the people you're talking to and use it to describe what you're talking about in their language, so that the language itself isn't a challenge. Show what we do. Don't just tell them that they're wrong, but show them our work. Their eyes, their hearts know when they see beauty. And make gentle fun of them if you can, but don't, don't bully. Don't reinvent what you don't need to. Collaborate. And plug into, and this has come some directly from Andres, into existing networks of power. So he said, rather than change the planning system of America, we just changed the document that they use to the smart code. And now, hundreds and hundreds of municipalities are administering a good code. And you never had to challenge any of them. You just moved the book away and gave them a new book. And to be copied, as some people have said, oh, my work's been copied, you know, blah, blah, blah. This is the highest form of flattery. This is a sign of success. You should aim for every one of your designs to be reproduced ad nauseam, as Palladio did. You didn't hear Palladio complaining that people were copying his work. So I think when we come back to the modernists, and we always end up talking about the modernists, but remember that these are people just like us, that have had a cult training, as Salangaros wrote in this brilliant essay for INTBAU, which briefly became the most popular page on our website in 2003. And when people have had a cult training, you have to be very, very careful to talk to them. They saw a world broken in the early 20th century by industrialization, capitalism. I struggled to remember the word, which means adding simply a monetary value to everything, and sought to create a broken art to represent a broken world. So we can see they come from the same feeling that we have, that the world is broken, but their approach is different. Look for points of agreement. I remember having a wonderful conversation with Patrick Schumacher of Zaha Hadid Architects about our mutual admiration for vernacular architecture and its directness. Recognize that there is virtuosity in some of the people we don't necessarily admire. So Liam O'Connor worked with Zaha Hadid, and I asked him about that, and he said, she's extraordinary. You know, this was a joy for him to work with someone who challenged everything, and they challenged each other. This can be a constructive thing. Our common enemy is the mediocre and the mundane, not these global stars. The places that we drive through to get to the beautiful places, the endless plains of logistics centers and boring housing, these are our common enemies. There has always been a traditional architecture alongside modernism. You can show that to them. We're so lucky in France that the post-war reconstruction was largely, particularly along the River Loire and in Brittany, largely traditional, because local people and local mayors could decide what style the rebuilding was in. It was only in national centers like Le Havre where the government stepped in. So there's always been, where people have the right to comment, there has always been a traditional architecture. Oh, and I've repeated that point. And finally, so go along to other people's conferences. They will always have call for papers. Get on the mailing list for other conferences. Respond to the call for papers. Use their language to describe what you want to talk about. Go and speak at them. Go into the lion's den. You won't convert everyone, but you'll spread our ideas to a wider audience than the 40 lovely people in this room. They'll challenge you. You can sharpen your arguments on their stupid challenges, and you'll be the most interesting speaker, I guarantee, because you'll be the one challenging the status quo. So just to finish on an anecdote, I went to a conference on new towns at the Sorbonne Nouvelle in Paris, and Poundbury is not considered as a new town by these new town specialists because they don't like it. So I went along and I talked about Poundbury. This is a joint paper coming out with some collaborators from University of Grenoble, and somebody at the end said, oh, so Poundbury, just an enclave full of rich people, right? And I thought, oh dear. Because he walked right into the trap. Said, no, actually, it's one-third, unlike Milton Keynes, it's one-third affordable housing. And in fact, the social landlord says it's their best project. So don't fear the questions that you'll be asked, is my conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much for this very comprehensive presentation. And I think all of us can't thank enough to all the fantastic work that the King's Foundation did all around the world, and also INTBAU. But your presentation contains so many good advices and also so many type of courses that it's difficult to compete with the work of the King's Foundation. But we will aim towards this level of excellence. Yes, collaborations. The next speaker is Frank Martinez, which is an architect, professor of the practice, School of Architecture, University of Miami, USA, but also part of the Foundation Constructivas Tradicionales from Spain, and we are very much interested in this part of him. Thank you.
So, good morning, everyone. Am I close enough? I hope. So first, thank you very much to the Academy for this invitation. Closer? I guess I should pull this up. Is it okay? Okay. Thank you very much for to the Academy for this great honor of inviting us to present the work of the now the Fundación Culturales, Constructivas y Tradicionales. And I'll tell you a little bit about its history and show you some images, but also great congratulations, Alessandra, Ettore, Georgia, to put together such a wonderful conference. This is really fantastic, this kind of gathering, especially in honor and memory of Léon Krier, who is fundamental to the work that I'm lucky enough to participate in and contribute to. Now, sitting here amongst you is also Lucien Style, who is one of the core faculty that's part of the summer schools that I'll be showing you at this time. Let's make sure I get this right. Okay. So primarily I'd like to talk to you about the Iberian traditional architecture and urban design summer school. What you're looking at here are some of the posters, some of the images that sort of led our program and our itinerary over the years. I like showing very much this beautiful floor paving pattern, which was actually shown to us in a project by Rafael Manzanos, who I'll speak to briefly. But I always remember this as being so beautiful. Just the notion of material and method of construction, the love and the goodness that goes into the making and actually the reconstruction and bringing back elements, in this case, in a monastery in central Spain. And so I hope to take you on a quick little tour through some of the work that's been done and to focus a little bit on the kind of work that we do and the reasons for the kinds of topics and subjects that we go over. Before getting into that detail in a very expressive, in a kind of overview way, the foundation now, what I'm going to talk to you more about is this educational program, but the foundation actually has an extensive sort of purpose, agenda, goals and aspirations that are very much in sync with what we've been seeing here today. And so in this image, just so that you all can see that fundamentally when the summer schools began, it was an offshoot, or it was part of the Driehaus prize in architecture, a prize in traditional and classical architecture, where, security alert. He's taking care of it. So when Richard Driehaus and his foundation founded the Driehaus Prize, its first laureate, Léon Krier, that in and of itself is so unique and special. Eventually, this sort of this great foundation with its subsequent laureates, great architects who have participated in, I guess, last year's and previous conferences here, really brought something very special to this, and that is that when Rafael Manzanos Martos was awarded the prize and became a laureate, Richard Driehaus was so enamored, taken by the wonderful work that he was doing and that was happening in Spain, throughout Spain, that he decided to then fund a new prize, the Rafael Manzanos Martos Prize in Spain, that eventually became Iberian for both Spain and Portugal, which is where we are today with the program. But because what he saw was this great interaction with the crafts, with material and method of construction, with all of these wonderful artisans that were really, that they were fundamental to the making of traditional architecture. I think it was actually Léon and Rafael who sort of inspired in him this notion of having a larger program that would include education and publication. And into that, really the leader of the foundation now, our great friend, Alejandro Garcia Armida, very young, was brought in, and he was very much in line with this understanding that it was about bringing people together and really understanding the larger context and role. So I'll come back to that a little bit as well. But these are some of the things that happened from that. The awards for the building arts through Driehaus, the architecture competition where cities in Spain actually bring proposals that architects compete and work on. I won't be showing you these, but all of these can be found on the Foundation's website and so forth. The Journal of Traditional Building Architecture and Urbanism, which I'll show you some examples. And then, of course, the medal and the international schools, many of which I'll only be showing you are Iberian summer schools, but many of which take place in other places. It's now becoming very global, but Alejandro does very important things in Morocco and so on, and with earth construction and these sorts of things. It's always about bringing, it's about understanding tradition and tradition in place, and being able to bring that as a learning tool, and also with a great amount of respect and admiration for that work which is being done. And so one of the great things that the foundation and the organization put forward is in fact this access point to all of the different artisans, this bringing together this compendium of all of the resources that are available in Spain, now being extended to Portugal. And I'm happy to say we're attempting to get a branch of the foundation in the United States as well. I'm encouraging my wife and partner to be a part of that as well. Because as you'll see, the work is really fantastic and meant to be supportive. Probably this doesn't show very well, but of course, the different building arts traditions, the artisans, and a map of Spain showing within the different trades, different artisans, and how one can contact them and find these resources. So really for architects, this is something that we struggle with in the United States. And well, we can hear more about that later. Very quickly, of course, the organization also puts together exhibitions. Here we see an example where again, the public is invited, is part of the awards program as well. So every year, there are these kinds of exhibitions that are, we see some examples of the journals here. So this kind of public participation is fundamental and key. Only quick images of some of the competition winners in the different cities thus far throughout Spain. And then the publication component is very important as well. Here I'm just showing one example, one of the Rafael Manzano's Martos laureates, Donald Gray. A book was published by Alejandro and Javier Senica Celaya from San Sebastian, really bringing for us this wonderful compendium on the work of Donald Gray in Andalusia. Work like this that really began in the 60s and 70s. Amazing. I had the honor of meeting Donald and being able to spend time and learning and actually watercoloring alongside him in one of our summer schools in Sevilla. And of course, the journal, here's the latest cover, but the series of journals that actually bring both heavily researched, beautiful works by academics and practitioners. So it's important to see the kind of work that's being done that involves both urban design and architecture. So having said this, sort of jumping directly to the International Summer School, what we now call the Iberian Summer School. We see images here, not unlike the ones you've seen so far, of students here in Navarra. We were in a place called Amayur Maya, a collection of villages, beautiful group setting. There's Lucian, but without his hat. They're up in the picture. But the reason I show you this slide is because in Madrid in 2015, it was sort of the inaugural summer school. There was one intro the year before. And here I remember this wonderful celebration dinner that we had on the end. And of course, here's Léon. It was such a joy to have him there with us, along with Rafael Manzanos. And so I was trying to kind of bracket them here. Rafael, when we had this program in Madrid, he really got very excited and emotional about the opportunities of what could come from the summer schools. And we said, well, Rafael, we have to do next year in Sevilla, which is his hometown. And I said, we just have, you need to show the students the work that you've worked, your life's work. Of course, the great architect and professor at the University of Sevilla as well. And the image below is from our last year's summer in Ronde. One of the great things, in this case, Sevilla, is even back then in 2016, and with Rafael's help, of course, the local papers were actually coming to see us and writing, and it was really a fantastic thing. this notion of a summer school, bringing together 25 to 30 students to first and foremost in the first week to study architecture, to document, to really learn the tradition of place. So the most important concept I think that grows or that we bring to the summer school, actually taught to us, right, by our mentors, by Léon and by Rafael, is this notion of understanding place, context, that we begin with that. We begin with the city, and then that will lead to further study. So how we go about this process is a little bit of what we'll show you, but here, I mean, they even went out of their way to begin to interview the students and to interview us, and it was kind of unique. What are these people from all over the world doing here? This sort of thing, which I think is wonderful because it really challenges. And so, in order to, here on the left, you actually see part of the overall plan last summer where we were in Ronde and looking at the hub of the old city and its extension. And you can begin to see some of the different areas that we sort of selected with the with the city, those some of the officials in charge, in this case the mayor as well. They always, or now they come to us and we contact them and we think about what would be potential interesting places for some kind of project to occur. So it always changes and it's always dependent on what would be a great opportunity where we could actually bring something positive. Now, before getting to that second week of project, these are just images to give us a sense of the kinds of things that happen, the touring, the always being together. The foundation has actually gone out of its way, since we're always in a different city. And one summer, 1 year in Spain, one in Portugal, to find places, beautiful places, obviously, where we can be, but searching for a place where the students can stay, the students and the faculty. Often, some of the resources are to improve or to help with places where they can house students so that we're also making a kind of improvement that can then be used in following years by other groups or other organizations or obviously in place. And so all of that, for example, in Navarre, we were basically in the town hall building that had on its ground level is where the gastronomical society of the town, of the village, did their thing. So they volunteered to cook for us for 2 weeks. And it was actually spectacular. And at the next level, we had our studio. And then at the third level, this was a kind of typological building, all the students were housed. And there was some restoration that took place right before we arrived to be able to make that happen. And then wonderful things happen as we're touring local villages, places of interest. Like in this case, I remember attempting to lecture here on one of the streets leading to the town square, and a big German shepherd dog came and barked at me and advised me that I should get out of the way because he was herding the cows. And so we did. And we really got to learn a lot about place, the larger culture of place, not just one thing or another, but that it all comes together really to make architecture. So these images are like the ones that you previously saw from my colleagues here. So the students measuring, drawing, visiting a variety of different places, the way that we always gather to review sketches and drawings, again, depending on the subject, depending on the topic, and of course, always the inclusion of the wonderful artisans and crafts, normally, again, of place, so depending where we are. Now, sometimes we'll also bring people from within the region as well, depending, but always trying to understand masonry, carpentry, ironwork, etc. And we've been very lucky because through the network, we're very well connected. And these master craftspersons are always happy to share with us their knowledge and then actually to have the students engage and attempt. We study and we make different kinds of drawings, again, depending on what the location is. And as a faculty, we always come together to think about what are the most appropriate lessons that we can learn depending on where we are. So I'll show you maybe some better examples of that. In this case, in the Azores and Picos, we really quite wonderful these sketches and these overlays where, for example, we were asking the students to concentrate on the streets and on sections. So the notion of them using their bodies, not really just measuring instruments, but primarily we like to have them use their bodies as the main measuring device so that they could pace out these different places. And we talk about the role of different kinds of drawings and how they become informative in terms of really understanding the larger notion of place. So the orthographic drawings, drawings that are more scientific, and then of course, perspectival drawings. So we'll see a variety. But in a place like Marvao, a beautiful hill town, right? In La Extremadura, on the edge of Portugal, this notion of how the section works, of how you work with topography, of the stepping, is really a way. So here we see it was a collection of students sort of moving their bodies around, trying to figure out how can we really properly understand and depict this place. And so these are examples. And then of course, often the notion of how, in this case, the one street village, and how we think about, in this case, roof plans. So understanding the bodies of the buildings and how they come together, and which really leads to a better understanding always of typology. So going from overall to specific, you then really begin to delve into the architecture in a more strategic way, where we ultimately get to plans, sections, elevations of buildings. And so normally wherever we might be, there's always, when we were in Ronde last summer, we then visited a few of the smaller Andalusian towns nearby, some at lower altitudes, some hill towns at higher, but to really get a sense of place. And so just quickly, in Sevilla, the courtyard, the notion of the overall urban structure, but then the courtyard typology of the house was really studied in depth. And we started like this, understanding the ensemble, but then we actually had groups of students in each of these courtyards where they would then go in and draw them in plan, section, elevation. And after doing that, we then picked, I believe it was 7 squares in the city, 7 plazas, and they studied them exactly the same way, plan, section, elevation, to understand this kind of Vitruvian and Albertian concept of the city is like the house, and the house is like the city. And so, of course, sketches, street elevations that would help us later to propose projects. I won't get into detail of how but then of course, detailed drawings. So these are beautiful, but some of these wash out on the screen. A collection, because we always like to, in a sense, have a book of the elements of architecture of the place, to try to be as comprehensive within a small amount of time, but to try to be as comprehensive as possible. And so, of course, to give you a sense of the students at work, the project for some of the final drawings, for example, here in Sevilla, where it was really the formulation of a new extension to the city, right? So a new neighborhood for the city, or in this case, in Amaiur, the literally infill, or sort of bringing in small architectural examples that were infill projects, or the sort of reconstitution of the plaza. I'm not showing you the before, this is the after, but always finding what would be a great opportunity for a project to occur, right? This was in Polientes in Cantabria. And again, other examples where we go, again, sort of final, the buildings that you see are the student projects, in this case, in the Azores, on the island of Picos. This is at the north of Portugal, in Arcos de Valdevez. So we're literally on the border with Galicia. And then on a beautiful property in Barcelona, where students were able to think about an old sort of enclave on the hill. And then one of our final ones in last summer in Ronde, and these photographs are always better, where we actually see the large plan I showed you, and then a larger scale master plan that identifies the different project sites that the city government had recommended for us to work on. And of course, always these public presentations, and really, they've been very well attended. And since we do our best from the moment we arrive to talk to, obviously, share with all of the people, the inhabitants of place, let them know that we'll be having lectures and so on. The one thing that I wasn't showing here is that in our first week, every evening, like we've done here, lectures in the evening where local historians, geographers, architects, arborists, landscape architects, people of the town are invited to lecture, speak, so that we really get a true sense of what the place is. And then, of course, as the projects develop, and always going back to our foundations. Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much. This presentation shows us in how many forms education can come, from journals, maps of artisans, all sorts of summer schools, and also the fact that having such a strong foundation, like your foundation, then you can afford to become like a nomad, taking the spirit of place from many places. This is also a model. And now our last speaker, coming from Romania, Ana Maria Goilav, presenting us a different type of school, a school very much based on hands-on experience, and a fantastic project that was awarded the Philippe Rotier Award in 2024. Ana Maria, which founded the school together with Petre Guran. It's the founder of the Bunești school, and also the deputy chair of INTBAU Romania, the very recently resuscitated INTBAU chapter, and the Bunești school acts as the host of this new chapter. So let's welcome Ana Maria.
Thank you, first of all, for the privilege of being here and now in this incredible place and on this very special occasion, conference dedicated to the legacy of Léon Krier. Post-communist capitalism in Romania produced, in the name of freedom, a violent loss of measure, not only spatial, but in a much broader sense, a moral, human, constructive, and symbolic loss of measure. We are presently confronted to the most extensive peacetime urban demolition in European history. Bucharest lost approximately 8 square kilometers of historic urban fabric during the 80s demolitions. In the last 30 years, racing to become a European capital, but subjected to the violence of speculative growth, another equal amount. Altogether, we witness today a lost city twice the scale of Venice. What we've put instead? Density without urbanity and copy-paste architecture. Glass and concrete objects disconnected from place, climate, and scale. Globalized office typologies, generic residential blocks, post-human interiors, buildings made for financial circulation rather than inhabitation. In 30 years, architecture largely became real estate packaging. Paradoxically, what the communist regime started, we have somehow succeeded in completing. Even when preserving, we have generally acted with violence against historic buildings in a new environment dominated by large-scale advertising mesh banners and graffiti, symptoms of both abandonment and rebellion against heritage. Aggressive structural reinforcements, cosmetic conversions and false restorations, decorative facadism, and of course, technological implants. But to me personally, the most painful reality after December '89 is the ongoing aggression against the rural structures, as I believe rural Romania preserves the best of who we are, a civilization of wood and crafts, a minor culture swinging between neighboring empires, still capable of a deep vernacular wisdom of inhabiting a place. Our villages were not spared. The new mentality has reached them in terms of concrete substitutions and imported aesthetics, disappearance of local intelligence, and loss of inherited knowledge of place. Ever since I was invited to teach architecture at the State University in Bucharest 25 years ago, I have been asking myself, by its very essence, and all the more in the current situation, can architecture remain neutral? Or is it either right or wrong, appropriate or inappropriate? And if so, is there another way to practice architecture today? Can it heal instead of dominate? Can it rest instead of impress? Can it care instead of consume? The School of Bunești grew as one possible answer. In the summer of 2008, a group of 60 architecture students landed on an isolated meadow in the middle of a forest, 2 hours by car from Bucharest and 2 kilometers from the last house in the nearby village. Eager to build something real with our own hands and intelligence, using only the materials the site had to offer. We've shared the persistent feeling of spending endless years at the faculty dealing with a vast amount of abstract notions with no practical validation. We also noticed that modern architecture generally taught in schools separated thinking from making, drawing from building, and of course, concept from labor. The Bunești School aimed at reversing this separation. The architect on site ceases to be an image producer, manager, and consultant, and becomes present again, responsible and materially implicated. Architecture is no longer representation, but first and foremost, construction. So far, we have imagined and built 7 full-scale prototypes. New architecture, but rooted in historical precedents and local resources, each of them dedicated to a single material and its specific hand-building technique. A block-bow carpentry workshop, an adobe student dormitory, a Byzantine masonry trapeza, a hemcrete professor's house, a timber frame summer kitchen, a recycled glass bottle sanitary pavilion, and an earth-bag underground technical room. We also had to admit that we were too busy with school to start thinking on our own, while architecture refused to define itself exclusively in terms of technological data and functional programs taught at university, or on building codes and regulations imposed by law. We realized that its beauty and public relevance were directly tied to the architect's cultural formation, a personal journey and effort, and that the right direction begins with knowing how to ask the essential questions, as C.S. Lewis would say. This is how the days and nights we spent in the forest became an attempt to symbolically recover the vital time dedicated to self-edification through reading and contemplation, debates and exegesis guided by philosophers, historians, philologists. Every summer, we proposed to our students a cardinal text as a personal companion on the construction site. This is how a list of great books has emerged, and Petre Guran, historian and co-author of the project, he's here, and I want to thank you, Petre, for taking me into this adventure. He developed it into a possible 3-year consecutive study program. One of the first titles we used as foundational reading was Dorothy Sayers' The Lost Tools of Learning. And in time, we realized that for us, this translated into simultaneously hand-building and reading. By placing essential texts alongside historical tools, we have embarked on a form of resistance, aiming to reconcile and integrate theory and practice in a mutually validating, formative, and deeply human process. Moreover, since 2020, the school has also addressed teenagers, inviting them to join us into the classical world of literature, arts, and architecture. And you have here a sample of the Iliad being played into a parking lot in Bucharest. From the first summer school 19 years ago, the project has continued to evolve increasingly into a self-standing school, hand-built by its own students, and hosting today an international community of practice made of architects, humanists, and artists, but also rural inhabitants and craftsmen. A community preserving the human art of building as essential knowledge during the fragmentation of contemporary construction culture. Not a retreat as a form of escapism, but schole in its etymological sense as free time, free personal time for the recovery of beauty as a fundamental human right. How could we possibly sustain today a model of autonomous humanity in the face of the overwhelming rise of digital education? Bunești School answered this by literally putting architecture back into the hands of its creators. Our hands, now largely reduced to keyboards and touchscreens, have proven to be a repository of forgotten practical knowledge through which we finally come to discover our own bodily intelligence. Handwork gave us the right measure of construction, acting as a cane, the reed used in ancient times by architects as a ruler. It provided us with tactile experience, almost therapeutic, while revealing to us slow building and the virtue of patience. It turned every building effort into a team building and a personal bodybuilding session. But above all, it silently led us toward decisions and emergent adaptation throughout the processes of chiseling or notching toward the tacit knowledge impossible to be recorded in handbooks, something that AI has yet to achieve. Abandoned because of ideology and fashion, comfort, and the desire to evolve from busy laborers into lazy consumers, genuine natural materials are, ironically, the very answer to the urgent need for human, sustainable, environmentally responsible, and no-waste architecture. They combine within a single material system the functions of structure, thermal insulation, waterproofing, and vapor permeability. But above all, to me, the timeless principles of their tectonics that have traveled through history to reach us, tested by both time and human curiosity, embody the very essence of architecture, regardless of age and style. To me, the space structure acts as a time machine and speaks today about our final global need for identity, human identity. But there is more than that. In our hands, clay, stone, and wood had started to speak to us. I call them the prefabricates of God. Handmade architecture has naturally guided us toward handwriting, drawing, and painting with and upon architectural materials, engaging the arts in the service of the word and of the face. Ideogrammatic imprints of mock-ups on fabric, or as-built surveys engraved on window shutters and seals. Vitruvian pavements echoing cosmic topographies, and many-eyed cherubs watching over students from door frames. Sky visitors painted in clay on lime-washed adobe walls, or a stucco Civita Dei. For when handling local natural materials, the outcome is not just building, it is topophony. Our school returned from ergonomics back to harmony, from universal measure and modern obsession with optimization, efficiency and metrics, toward a renewed focus on the human being. We return to man connected to creation, to proportions and relationships rather than calculations. There are both churches, some churches that I planned and built, and humble mock-up structures in the meadow of our school, but obeying the same rule of Platonic geometry and harmonic proportions. There is the guest house, professor's house, the trapeza, and the summer kitchen. But this is a memorial church, for instance, dedicated to the victims of the political detention during the communism regime, trying to echo the freestanding cupola in Diocletian's palace in Spalato, for instance, entirely made in brick.
It is in the city which is next to the Bunești.
And here another two churches, one entirely made of timber, in the northern part of Romania, and a church still under construction somewhere in Transylvania. We have learned to measure again, according to our aim of self-limitation and remembering Vitruvius, who believed in a proportional, repeatable base unit governing the whole composition, completely opposite to the post-human, sterile sense of industrial repetition. For proportioning space instead of the diameter of a column, we made use of the building module, a roof truss, a pillar, an adobe sun-dried brick, many adobe sun-dried bricks, a board and a beam, even a recycled bottle, a fired brick. It's invisible here, but you can imagine it on the pavement, but also continuing into the walls, and a sandstone slab. They all give us back not monotony, but rhythm. Architecture became a sung chronicle, revealing how the building was made. The School of Bunești is more than a place in the forest. It's more than an architectural practice. It is an ethical and existential position toward building, inhabiting matter and place. It started with a small group of people who, assuming a shared sense of guilt, embarked on a small-scale, symbolic recovery of an architecture of place. To sum up, one cannot choose the historical time into which one is born, but may still choose the place to live. How and with what measure? Grounded exclusively in site resources, vernacular architecture is actual without being modern. Place is the most trustworthy architect, inspiring construction free from the ideology of modernity, free of any ideology, mere architecture. A pedagogy of place and mere architecture would entail training through real projects, both theoretical and practical, the use of local resources, both material and immaterial, expressing the tectonic principles of building materials, shaping space according to human scale, harmonic proportions, and Platonic geometry, preserving, repairing, and maintaining, and only eventually, and if necessary, building anew. In the end, just imagine what a peripatetic new school of architecture might look like, with students living in and learning from each place: colombage in Alsace, thatching in the UK, ladrillo visto a Madrid or Miami, carpentry at Bunești, and the most exquisite restoration at Vivarium Novum. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this extremely moving presentation, Anna. I'm always extremely attached to this. Of course, I'm from Romania. But I like very much how you ended this fantastic presentation, somehow summarizing what actually we would like to propose, a cooperation between those forms of education. They are all different, but practically all together can form a whole. And although it's very late, I think we can discuss a bit about this idea of cooperation, because we are all here. This open table was conceived especially as an example, as palette, an eventail of possible ways and possible approaches, and as an inspiration for the new Academy of Vivarium, to keep it inspired that there are many, many things to do, but they don't have to start big, they can start small with the help of the other friends. And all together we can do that European Academy to be the first, and all of us to be the first in this great endeavor. So if you would like to have some questions, or we have already a question. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I have a question to the gentleman from Florida on his presentation. Your presentation is very good. I mean, it was very interesting that the sites you're going to and everything and the educational base. My question is, when you have all these students and you're doing these things, is it always good to take them into optimal situations? Or maybe wouldn't it be better to take them into a slum someplace where they could create something that could change the life of people and bring a little bit of humanity to the architectural process?
Well, again, these places are, the different cities, towns are chosen along with the help of people who are part of the larger organization, things that would make sense, because what happens is that we would normally have between 26 and 30 students who, there's only a tiny fee for students to apply, to register. And for example, this coming year, we received something like 188 applications where the students submit, they do submit portfolios, but also writing, text, talking to us about their motivation, what they're searching for. And the truth is that we try to search for a balance of students who are interested in traditional urbanism and architecture, but when accepted to the program, which is a small amount, and international, I mean, literally, it's just amazing, from all over the globe, they have to just get to where we're going. Other than that, everything is covered. Everything is the resources of what the foundation has brought together, donations, et cetera, are put into that. So we always have to search for these places that will work for us. At the same time, it's within these places that it's not that we're looking for the slum, as it were, but we're searching for areas. For example, last summer in Ronde, some projects were in the heart, Gaku, of the old city. Some were a little bit further out as part of the extension, and really in areas that I don't know if I would characterize them, Lucy, and you can help me, as slums, but that they were areas that were really in need of dramatic help, transformation, or ideas that could be brought to the larger community in a positive way. So really, for us, it's always this sense of discovery and finding these different places across the Iberian Peninsula, which again, whether you're going from north to south, east to west, it's all about the specificity of the place where you are. So I think that we do find, but Lucian, if you wanted.
I just wanted to add, I'm founder also of the Culturas, Constructivas, Tradicionales, and I would like to answer you saying that the school, summer school, main role or objective is to reach the younger people and to diffusion, to disseminate, and to show them real examples of vernacular, fantastic architecture and get them inspired. We have in the foundation the competition, the architectural competition, and there we are doing this role of searching for the first layer of the competition is to select among the municipalities of remote areas in Spain that have a need of some renewal projects to present their candidacy. The jury's first decision is to choose 3 places that would be a very good example, each with a different problem, sometimes urban planning, sometimes renewal of a central square, which would become an activation project. And then that also is involving the public administration into our organization, which is a main objective also of the Artisans Directory, which is another incredible initiative of the foundation and of Alejandro García Hermida. In any case, that this role of reaching in small villages and trying to, that way, activate, and at the end they get, because the second round is the international competition with very few requirements in terms of bureaucracy, paperwork, or even this sort of having a business volume of the studies. No, nothing of that. So very young teams can participate, and that way we give the town a fantastic project that then, of course, second step is how do you go into implementation. But there already the public administration is involved, etc. It's always trying to root ourselves in the system as the new urbanism and Andres Duani started.
Quickly, I would like to propose that maybe you think all together on the grand tour of the School of Architecture. Yeah, so in the summer programs, so maybe if the students doesn't have the opportunity to study in a traditional school for 5 years, maybe if you unite all together and these students have the opportunity to do that grand tour, will be spectacular. Yeah.
This is first questions, then I go forward in case of need. But I would like to ask Anna Maria and Nadia how you managed, bureaucratically speaking, the involvement of the students in the construction and in the restoration. Could you?
We have special insurance. No, but we need to have some. But yeah, as we were doing in Bruges, so we have craftsmen, we find the right materials, and then to restore the building, we need to have, let's say, a little contract with the owner. So that's one way. And then an insurance for the students, for the school, for the association. But it's not that complicated.
Because we are in the same continent, and I'm going to tell you what's going to happen in Italy.
Since I'm also a professor at the University of Architecture in Bucharest, most of the students, I have to say that we have about 80, 90, sometimes 100 and more students per year, per summer. Most of them know me. Some of them are my students and they follow me or read the things that I'm writing and admire what's going on at Bunești, or at least are very curious about it. And behind there is a paper of partnership with different, I think all of the faculties, because we have one University of Architecture in Bucharest, but another 3 or 4 faculties in Romania. So we have these open partnerships with all the schools of architecture in Romania, and not only, recently with la Table Ronde de l'Architecture, Alejandro, Culturas, Constructivas, and I'm happy to say that this grand tour has already started, because actually we have the best students recommended, at least I recommended my best students, and they went to Alejandro last year, so one of them, I recognized a student in the photos, she was the same person into my last photo. So the grand tour has already started. What we would like to do, and we ask for your help, is to increase the % of foreign students attending our summer classes.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, I would address first the question about where we take our students. Obviously, everything we've ever done involved community engagement, and I would urge you not to overlook that though these places look very beautiful, they often are very deprived and in a perilous state, and so what looked like a series of idyllic summer schools are actually addressing very real issues, often of rural poverty. But in answer to the question of how you get your students to work on historic buildings, we have a catch-22 in Britain in that in order to become licensed to work on a listed building, a historic building, you have to have worked on one, but you can't work on one until you have the license. So this is why we have our live build projects. The students gain the experience in building new traditional buildings, which they can then get their license to work on listed historic buildings.
Yeah, my question was not about working on the listed building, because these are, thank goodness, almost worldwide regulation that have been taken in consideration. But my question was mainly about some of the picture that if I show in some Italian context, I will be arrested. Because you can't access to a site of restoration without the helmet, without the belt, without proper shoes, without anything that is preserving the safety of the student, of whoever works. So we are thinking about something that must be a European school of classical, traditional architecture, urbanism, landscape, restoration, craft, etc., etc. But we are we can't be, now I don't want to offend anybody because this is, maybe someone can interpret this word wrongly, but we can't be naive because we are prisoners of rules that from the very first day of this conference were defined sometime wrong. And until we are slave of this wrong, crazy bureaucracy, we are going to die for bureaucracy, we will not go anywhere. This means that we need to do something that is making any country in the right position to do something that is going to be recognized all around in Europe. So I'm dreaming, I've been dreaming maybe in the last 40 years to create a school, because I did in the high school, before being a student of architecture, I studied in a high school of arts and craft to become a designer of interior design and architecture, because my intent was to then study architecture. And already I'm talking about the era of the dinosaurs, because I'm talking about the end of the 70s. But we were already working with a series of measures that were protecting our hands, our eyes, our shoes, our body. And if we want to think properly, we need to consider that we don't need only this, but before any design, we need to have a licensed architect or engineer or survey of safety that is making a master plan, which is just a bureaucratical document that is describing work by work when has to be done, how long has to be, how they have to wear, all these things, which are also expensive and have to be taken in consideration. Because if we appear naive, as we are accused of being naive because we're doing classical architecture in the 21st era, we will be naive also because we talk about construction methods and materials and whatever without knowing how those things are happening. So if we want to have something that is European, we need to consider the bureaucracy that apparently must be the same in Europe, but country by country, it's completely different, because probably only the Italian politicians are those that are transforming our job in some cage where you want to only escape. You can't imagine how many architects are deciding to quit, because it's ridiculous the way they are obliging to have a credit every year, and if you don't do it, you will be stopped for a few days according to the number of credit you didn't get. It's crazy. So we need to consider how dangerous could be showing something that is marvelous, because we have seen marvelous things, but on the other hand, I want to do, I don't know if you have this word in English, but it's the lawyer of the devil. And I need to consider what could be the accusation, how we can appear, because we already have an idea of curriculum here in Frascati. We have been discussing for at least 1 year, but even more, about the idea of creating the school. But we need to avoid to expose our shoulder to those that wants to backstab. And we need to understand that we are living in a world that is getting more and more bureaucratic, and we need to escape the problem before appearing. So.
What? Ah, yes, sorry. Yes, thank you. I sit here. I can stand. Yeah? We need another chair. Yes, we need a chair. Yes, what Ettore said is very right. So when we start thinking about our school projects, the very first thing we did is having conversation with the region and all the institutions who have an important impact. Yeah? Or this? Wait? Yeah? Oh, okay. An important impact on architecture and craft education in Alsace, but also in France, so nationally. And I can tell you, we have them all on our side, so they are very enthusiastic about it. So, you know, of course there is rules. We are an association, we are not yet a school properly or a university, so the rules apply to us a bit differently. Of course, our students during craft workshop, they have, you know, depending on the craft, they will have gloves, they have proper shoes, and they have all those protection materials. But we have much more freedom right now as an association. So that's something we will have to see also when we go into something which is much more formal, you know, academic. We don't want to lose that freedom. So it might be that we will stay, an associative school and not, something different. So only time will tell us, but it's very important for any of those school projects when it starts is to get all the actors on our side and to show them also that we are not, a strange group of some would say conservative traditionalists. We are like people who want to bring something good for the economy of the country and also good for the culture. And also to show that many, many, many young people are very interested into that and that they wish to practice. So there is a need in the market, so we need to fill it.
Yeah, I didn't show any pictures of our live builds, actually. I realise now, but had I done so, you would have seen the students wearing okay, thank you. I didn't show any pictures of live construction underway, but had I done so, you would have seen that the students were wearing personal protective equipment, boots that can't be crushed, hard hats and so on, because they're simply required for our laws and our insurance. And indeed, the students who are doing our restoration crafts course will have had to have a first degree in construction site safety, which is something called a non-vocational qualification level 3. So that's their starting point.
Well, from the, sorry.
No? Go.
From this point of view, we use, it's the easiest way to do it, what we've already got from the universities. They have a certain paper, a checklist for all the students, they sign it, and we just use that form in our case. But I have to emphasize that it's a cultural issue. If you want to have the craftsmen wearing the protection and the suit and the equipment, for them, I have to confess, it's a loss of human dignity to put gloves. Just imagine some carpenter or joiner using gloves when doing fine details. So.
No, I'm sorry. I was saying that the problem is that it's not a question of a habits or culture, but it's a question, as I said, of being slave of a way that in Italy oblige, even if you restore an apartment, if you make a refurbishment of an apartment, there is a specific branch of the Ministry of Health that is sending inspectors to check if there is a plan that is describing how the work has to be done, how people have to wear, how if those that are working are registered or allowed to work, and if they are doing, and how many workers are working on that day, whoever they are. You can have people that are coming from outside, but if they don't wear properly, the fine is horrible, and the site of restoration construction will be stopped for the number of days they decide. So, as I said, we are completely trapped.
Is different practice from the summer schools. So in the case of the summer schools, I believe that there is a different way of teaching and training the students. Yeah.
We're not talking about the summer school. We're talking about creating a real school and showing the right things. Then, obviously, they do a wonderful job.
If I may add just one more thing. In our case, the purpose is the practical education. So it's not real construction architecture, but rather full-scale study models, mock-ups. Of course, we use our hands and real tools, but the purpose, the final purpose currently is learning how to do it and learning by doing. And also people, non-architects, are coming for their experiential learning. So they ask for not being protected, let's say so. It's their own responsibility. And just imagine, again, someone working with clay. You are the tool. When working with clay started with your hand, you have to try the material with your hands. There's no other way to put it into the framework.
I think we need lawyers and people that go and change the rules.
Totally agree.
And the same thing with materials. They are not natural materials, will never be able to be homologated. industry is against true sustainability. So we have the best argument, but architects, we know already, I think, it's clear even for modernists what should be done. The problem now is going against this bureaucracy that, as Ettore very well says, is, how do you say, asphyxiating the real construction, the real architecture. Anyway, so we need in your school, you will need to have lobbyists, specialists in law and governance. I don't know. That's what we need most than anything else at this point.
I would like to assume part of the responsibility of the School of Bunești's madness. Yes, what Professor Mazzola observed, and what we still want to transmit, but I feel that what the Vivarium Novum also transmits is a revolt. It is a revolt. And when I was looking in the years 2006, 2007 for a solution, was the motivation was a deep revolt against this bureaucratization, excessive and corrupt bureaucratization of education. I would like, because there are people from the United States, and anyway we are here in the Vivarium Novum, so Peter Brown, the historian who taught at Princeton, should be known to you. He never finished his PhD. He wrote his Augustine also as an act of revolt, and was immediately offered positions in American universities. This was still possible 50 years ago. He started his international career in the early 70s. Yes? This was still a normal world where real value was recognized. In the meantime, the paper you have to prepare to enter at a certain level in university is a half year's work. And the committees so at this point, to become a full professor at the University of Bucharest, probably you need 1 year of dealing only with this contest. So what we were doing there, and of course now, 18 or years later, the character of the School of Bunești changes. But it was an act of revolt. We were 18 years younger. In fact, we met and our family was founded by the School of Bunești. So maybe you didn't know this detail. And Anna Maria came with a group of students who were almost our age, so only a few years younger. So it was an act of revolt. In the meantime, of course, all these helmets, they are there. And Anna Maria can show photos, the helmets and the gloves, and whenever it is necessary, the gloves are there. Only, of course, as it is a big community, there are 25 people and surviving in the summer. So as it was an ongoing workshop, we couldn't use the building. So we were living in tents next to so this aspect maybe is also important. We just occupied this territory, and even from this point of view, it is a family property that I retrieved after 30 years of legal action. But at the moment we started the project, I just occupied my territory. I went that this is my belonging. It was of my ancestors, and I reclaim it. So it was an act on many levels, an act of revolt.
You have to know the truth.
Way of what we can do and what we can't. But this is something that is not possible. So to do something and to start something is necessary to start within the restriction. The great challenge is to be able to start changing the world within the restriction to change the future. That's why we started this conference 4 days ago, saying that we need to change the way of teaching because those that are the advisor or the decision maker at the low level are those that are forming the wrong schools of architecture. So until we don't change the way of teaching, we will never change the other crazy things that are happening. But step by step, we need to arrive there, and we need to understand how, within the present restriction, we can do something that is allowing us in the near future to change something.
I would like to add something because I'm familiar with the Romanian way of working. Just a moment. First of all, Romania is the country of all possibilities. So you don't have this sort of regulation, and you will never have inspectors to come to check you because there are no money to pay those inspectors. Yeah. And this is practically our chance.
We don't have them in Britain either.
It's the chance to be an underdeveloped country, that we can still do those things, we can still know how to prepare lime mortars and other techniques, and how to say, there is a blessing in a less developed country. That's my motto, practically.
Did you, Rudy said you wanted to say something?
I have a question to all speakers of the day. What are you thinking about implementing lessons in primary schools in architecture, like art, like mathematics, chemistry, and the other things? Thank
you.
Yeah, I think, you know, we go back to Vitruvius and the knowledge of the architect needs to know mathematics, astronomy, climate, science, and all of these things. These become a part of the education of the architect. But as with our project with Cambridge, we don't need to reinvent those subjects because they already teach them very well. But we will teach the design, and we will teach the tectonics, and we'll teach the urbanism, because those are the bits where we vary from what is otherwise a standard architectural training.
I think a very good answer to your question is the fact that we do have in Romania a program of teaching architecture in school. Unfortunately, it's not traditional architecture, but it's like a play with architecture. It's called De Arhitectura. And now it's an international program, and we hope that we can implement also the traditional things, because you are extremely right, the education has to start earlier. We don't have to wait until they become students and their brain is already formed. This love for built environment, and especially historical, to appreciate what's around us, has to start really early. Otherwise, we are lost. And I think in England, they do this by visiting historical houses. There are all other techniques. And for the last 50 years, they managed somehow to bring back the love for the environment, the built environment. But this is a long process and has to start early.
I would like to add that since 2020, we started a forest school for children. And it happens every June before the students come. And we have like 2 to 4 or 5 series, 1 series 1 week. And the best thing that we can do for these children, they are both children from urban areas and from the villages, is to take them out of their classrooms. And they change completely. So there is mathematics and reading and learning and reading in the loud voice, but also everything mixed with practical experiences of the site. Is exploring the forest and applying what they know from biology and so on, and especially sciences, physics like mathematics, with direct practical applications.
Yeah, and I would add that our focus at Dumfries House is very much on school children, particularly school children from deprived areas in Scotland who've never seen an animal, who don't know where food comes from.
I think I have to, after Irene.
The Prince Foundation, now King's Foundation, and the then Prince of Wales had a very interesting, because he could really convoke people, and he identified that most of main streets in England is where the commercial is set, and they were all not occupied, the upper floors. So the moment the stores would close, it became a dead. And normally the problem was that it was the central part of the town. So it was a way of kind of dying the towns from the core. And he got together because he identified the problem was that the upper floors could not be residential because the insurers would not insure. And if they were not insured, the banks would not finance any mortgages. So that's the kind of thing that a king can do, but we should try to learn from them.
I think actually the king couldn't do it. The problem was very elegantly explained by a woman who founded an organization called Lots for living over the shop. And the problem is commercial and technical about the kind of contracts. These are commercial building owners. They want to let a full repairing contract, a commercial contract, and she solved it by using housing associations which can sign commercial leases and then sublease the individual apartments to social housing tenants and thus fill up the buildings. The trouble was everybody thought they understood it without any knowledge, and so they all copied it without understanding how you do it and then said it was impossible. So she was, when I met her, a very frustrated woman because she had actually solved this problem, but nobody listened to her because they thought they knew the answer. It's terrible. Yeah.
So should I? I see. So now the coffee break have been cancelled, but soon we will have to continue with the POIC program. So we don't have so much for this absolutely fascinating discussion. Any other question, and then we wrap this subject?
I would like to add something to the Bunești project. The necessity, in a way, turned it to a basically architecture or constructing school. But it was meant from the beginning to be a survival school. So we built shelters. It was a way of running out of a mad world. And this must say the basic message. Running out of a world that is already in flames. Now, as a historian and sociologist, I am measuring the tremendous changes which are taking place in our society, in our European society. Yes, of course, if we live in a certain milieu, in a certain world, we might not see it as serious as it is. But in the case of Romania, sometimes you feel the collapse of any form of authority. Because bureaucrats became so incompetent, in fact, so interested only about exploiting the society. So their business is to extract money out of society. It is not anymore corruption. It's a new social model. You can't speak anymore about corruption. So we have to react. Of course, we have different issues here in Frascati, in Romania, in Alsace. And of course, in collaborating, we will try to put together to find the common denominator of all our issues. And I am aware that it is always important to apply this quotation from the Gospels, be pure like doves and wise as serpents. So indeed, we need legal advice and a legal team to our project who will, who would help us start the project of our collaboration, and little by little then having, through the prestige that we will gain, impact on regulations, on bureaucracy, on law, hopefully.
I just want to really congratulate all of you. This is a new hope for the future and for the next generations. So be perseverant, don't stop. I think that this is a new way of education, and I am positive that there are plenty of students around the world that will be so blessed if they are capable of doing the grand tour especially. So thank you so much.
Alexandra was very kind and she moved the presentation of Poikile program after the lunch. So up to 1 o'clock we can continue this discussion, but not longer because we have to give the awards of this year competition. Thank you.
Just a quick question. The subject of an association of summer schools was just mentioned. How many summer schools do we now have?
I think last year there were at least 8 or possibly even 12 on INTBAU.
We are 17 already. Yeah. Last year at the it was a meeting online, there were 17. Only with 2, one in America, one in Mexico and one in Brazil, but there were 17 already.
And how?
And 2027 is going to be much more, because there is some new countries that have been added to the INTBAU, and it's now each country wants greater summer schools.
Does it work?
Is it okay? Yeah, that's better. No, so I was saying, like, INTBAU does a great work with that. There is more and more chapters around the world. We will soon have a summer school in Tunisia. That's a victory. In Tunisia, I hope so next year. And also in some country in Africa, and I'm sure in more countries around the world. But yeah, it's going to be more and more.
One in Kenya. So there is no association. How big is the interest for an association to solve the issues that each school solves individually?
It's INTBAU.
Say it again.
We have an organization that does this. It's INTBAU.
But INTBAU is not an association because not all summer schools are INTBAU summer schools, huh? INTBAU chapter summer schools.
The 17 we're hearing about are INTBAU summer schools.
But we work together, so we have meetings, there is an educational committee, and so we discuss, the program of each summer school, what are the problems of some of the summer school, how to, because you can do one summer school 1 year, but the year after you have a financial problem, so it's complicated, so to try to find, solution and to make them work, yeah. So we share, you know, the program or curriculum. We share all the practical advice. So it's yeah.
And they publicize all the initiatives.
Yeah, together, yes. And there is also something very important is that, I mean, maybe half of our students, they go from one summer school to the other. So every year they do another summer school. And so we have this year students from Bunești, I believe. And also we have often students from the Iberian summer school, from the Utrecht summer school. So there is an exchange, yeah.
Yeah, in more than 30 years, because the first we can date to 1990, basically. The number of summer school per year has been growing and growing, and thank goodness is growing even more. But in this moment, what is extremely important is to do something that is the next step, which is a full program that is going to create the first school where we can form the architect that are going to be the advisor or the decision maker to change the absurdity of the laws, restriction, bureaucracy, and blah, blah, blah.
But both things, both things coexist.
Yes.
Because they are, by definition, a short-term
and I think
you're right. The fertile ground that actually divulgate the good news.
Absolutely.
I'm inclined to disagree, not just for the purposes of being disagreeable, but because I used to manage I still do manage our list of alumni, and if I look at the ones who really went on to do traditional architecture from our architecture program that we ran in the 90s and from all the summer schools were more influential than the architecture programs.
No, nobody denied that, and that's, as I said, the summer school must be more and more and more, because this is the only way someone that is obliged to follow some programs in their own country, in their own university, where they are brainwashed with functionalism that we still continue to call modernism, have the chance to open their eyes and learn that there is something else. But that is something that makes many individuals aware about the possibility. The problem is that we need to have some institution that is giving a real degree that is put these people in a much more powerful position to be the right people to decide how things must be done.
And there is one already in the United States, Notre Dame's school.
I'm teaching there, but it's not recognized in Europe. The problem is that Europe is completely absent.
Right.
What about Kingston University?
So
Kingston University has a classical program for the last 15 years. Nobody noticed.
Yeah.
It's not controversial. Don't know, it's REBA accredited university. It's just started by two young people, and the faculty were not indoctrinated, and they thought, oh, how exciting. Well, yes, of course, you do this, why not, you young people? And so it continues. That's the Grand Tour program is I suspect, yeah. This is of course a dream, I think, and one that my dear friend Claudio D'Amato had of a Grand Tour European program. But I think let's concentrate on the summer schools, because we don't have to do the boring bits of architectural education. We can do the exciting, inspiring bits. Everybody else does the boring stuff. We do the exciting, inspiring bits in the summer where people meet people and change their minds.
Right.
Because, yeah, I think...
We always forget, unfortunately, and this is happening many times. I have to discuss with my students that believe that the only class that is important is studio design, that our profession has to cover all the possible aspect to work, at least in my country, at least in Europe. So if we are talking about Europe, we have to talk with the people that are belonging to Europe and know what is happening in Europe. And we can depend on models that are based on private schools or schools that are focusing only on drawings, on designing, instead of understanding that an architect needs to know how to make a static calculation, needs to know the chemistry of material, needs to know history, needs to know practice, needs to know anything that is related with our practice. This, the drama, one of the many drama of the functionalism that we call modernism, is also the fragmentation of realms. So there is the architect that is designing only the church, the architect that is designing only the hospital, the architect that does only bureaucratic stuff. But an architect needs to know how to weave from one side to the other. And this is the Italian way, this is the European way, and this is what the school has to be. If someone has different intention, probably these are perfect somewhere else. But if we want to give a title to a European architect in order to work in a European country and maybe abroad, we need to understand that the rules are those. And honestly, I consider that there are a lot of wrong rules. There are a lot of strange things that are happening. But despite the horrible brainwashing attempt, thank goodness I was safe, I had, when I was in the School of Architecture, I have to be grateful to University La Sapienza for the vast knowledge they allow me to have in any kind of field of my practice. And this is, I think, what is necessary to be done for every architect.
As I said before, we are all agreeing. So I like this debate, but I think that they are the first layer. And as you well said, to illuminate, to incentivize, and to create also a very important thing, the awareness of how local architecture is. Yeah. Because each of you has a very different kind of remodelation to do, because the climate, the materials, etc. So that's already incredibly important, that they are aware of the diversity, even in Europe. And then they need to get, of course, the proper qualification to become inside the power structure, be able to act too.
Well, I'm very heartened by the awareness, especially of the younger generations now, because all of these schools are incredibly well attended. There's an incredible enthusiasm and energy for it. It leads right to what Ettore is saying, ooh, let's try to do more. You know, it's more difficult when you think of a school that has licensure, but I really love this idea that, I mean, we begin to see the foundation now of what can possibly be. And I know that there have been many conversations, a lot of it sponsored by your dean, Ettore. The dean, Stefanos Polizoidis, has had conversations. How can we do a European school? And I think that, like the academy, actually having this session and bringing people together and continuing this conversation, but I do think that there's a beginning that could be that model of the Grand Tour. I teach a class called the Grand Tour, but that's a separate story.
I would like to add something. As an architect with 30 years experience, after very difficult 6 years of learning in Ion Mincu Institute of Architecture, where Anna Maria was also a student, I can only agree with Ettore that architecture is not just the romantic part that we like, but it's a lot of other things to know. And those are not teaching the actual form of summer school. So we still have to have a demarcation in between summer schools and the real school. Summer schools are perfect pools of enthusiasm from where we can pick and verify the students. But it's a bit naive to think that a grand tour of summer schools can equivalent with a terribly hard architectural education. It's like an iceberg. What we see, coloring books, but behind it's huge. But
you do not measure the amount of hypocrisy of our universities. And I am here speaking for my experience both in Romania and throughout the world. So this, we are giving more knowledge than at the normal schools or the usual schools. I think we have to start first by understanding the crisis, the deepness of the crisis of the pedagogical system. And it is not only the issue of architecture. I am amazed in this experiment, pedagogical experiment of Professor Miraglia. He brings in 6 or 9 months students to speak Latin and Greek. In Romania, the whole education of classical studies collapsed. And after 5 years of studies, a student of classical studies cannot translate at first view a classical text. This is the reality. So tell me, where do you have real knowledge? At Vivarium Novum or in a 5-year program of classical studies with students who do not understand Latin and Greek?
Let me answer you. We don't have to mimic the wrong system that we already have. But that doesn't exclude the fact that they have to learn a lot of things. They can be better things put it instead of the unused things. But in an architecture school, you have to learn a lot of things which are, how to say, mundane, boring, but you have to learn them. You can't reach excellency in 1 year. At 40, maybe. At 50, even more likely. So it's a process, a long process. And that's what I wanted to say.
I think we are all on the same page, because the problem is not to say the school of nowadays, it is better than the one we want to create, or we want to copy that. We want to do something that is covering all the aspects of our profession. Even in my school, which is the University of Notre Dame, you can imagine, and even now, analyzing the project we are going to, I hope, award in a while, sometimes it's hard to see how much importance is paid to the facade of a building without understanding nothing of structure, without understanding nothing of the way to organize a building inside, because this is too much a Beaux-Arts approach that is exactly what brought to the modernism, because modernism was introduced not with the word modernism, but functionalism, because the Beaux-Arts was considered dysfunctional. So we need to understand that if we want to be credible, we need to produce architects that are able to design something, and they have to be able to design something that is not going to be destroyed when it passes to the end of the engineer or to the end of the guy. So we need to understand what must be the proper curriculum to do projects that are beautiful and functional. Because to me, many times, I'm really almost depressed when in some jury, I can see someone that is playing the violin because there is a beautiful plan without understanding that there are rooms that are 2 meters wide. This is ridiculous to me. It's unacceptable. And those that are teaching these classes need to be prepared to form real architects and not designer of beautiful drawings, because architecture is a serious matter, and as we have seen with the neurophysiologists, it's something that is affecting our lives. We can't make something that appears beautiful and is unlivable, which is exactly what happened across the end of the 19th and the beginning of the 20th century, creating a series of things that brought to the conference of 1933 on the Patries, that when they decided that everything that was traditional was wrong and it was necessary to do something new, and they invented, because that was the easiest way of Le Corbusier, was to make the plan which is not divided, because that is, every stupid person can conceive a plan that is not divided properly. I like to teach my students how to divide a plan, how much does it cost, how they can make the evaluation, because it's also depressive when you make a project that is beautiful and someone is not asking about the beauty of the project, but is asking how much does it cost and where are the parking lots. Those things are belonging to our practice, and our students need to learn how to do it.
We are not going to solve this today, of course, but we are in a wonderful moment, because I think that some years ago this was not even possible. Yeah. And now that we are today having all these wonderful summer programs, opportunities for the new generation, now we can talk. So I think that this is a conversation that everybody has to analyze profoundly, and maybe in another opportunity, we come with better ideas. But I think that I'm so happy to see all of this and to have all the interventions. I think that we are in a wonderful moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mark Wilson-Jones, would you want to say something?
No, thank you, Maria. I was just thinking along parallel lines that perhaps there's some polemic and charge and passion here, which could be maybe there's a kind of contradictions and shifts, revolutionary, and sometimes you want to revolt, and other times no. And I kind of like the fact that we've all got the competences, but we don't have to think we have one answer. So we have a plurality of people, and some people are going to be the tough, do the revolution, and other people are going to do it locally. And I think when you have a phrase like, it's an old one, act or think globally, act locally. I think it's that kind of thing. You have to be able to have your passions, control them. When appropriate, attack. When not appropriate, you listen to Matthew, and you go quietly, and arrange things. And actually, back to just to close with a comment about Cambridge. He mentioned this fantastic thing that there's this new MST, it's called in British, it's a master's, which is going to allow the King's Foundation and Cambridge to produce master's students tied to the kind of apprentice thing, which means you will actually be able to qualify using this. But one of the things that's done that's really clever that Matthew didn't mention is that instead of actually putting tradition and classicism out there to the official architecture department, which would go, no, that's dangerous, if you remember what I was saying the other day, it's being pushed forward as under the umbrella of sustainability and that kind of aspect. And no one can quarrel with that. So you can have these students that within this umbrella, some are going to be more, if you like, technological, more normal within, and others are going to be listening more to Matthew and Ben Bulgar and others and people at Cambridge. And so I think that we just have to do that. I think we don't have to get so upset with each other that we think that it's not that way, you have to do it my way. I mean, we just do it all together, bit by bit, but it will take a long time. So, that's all.
Thank you so much. I am afraid I will have to finish it. I announced it that at 1 o'clock we have to give the award for the competition, but this conversation can go on at lunch. I'm very sorry, it was anyway much longer than expected. Thank you very much for all, and indeed tension and contraries are extremely important in order to get to new ideas and progress. Thank you all. Thanks.
Look away. Julia, she wants to ask if she's really...
But you should stay here for the awards, and then we go to lunch. It's 1 o'clock. We have to announce the competition. So this is not a break, please. We continue with the awards.
No, these are from... No, you have to ask.
So we would like to continue with the award. In 5 minutes, please, the award. We have to give the awards for the young talents.
Speak louder.
I have to shout.
Oh, silence!
Silenzio, prego. So we would like to continue with the competition winners and to invite Alessandra to announce. You think it's not working? It doesn't have batteries anymore?
No. Is it working? Can you hear?
But it's for Alessandra.
Okay. All right, so before we go on, hello, can you hear? No, yes, you can hear me through the microphone? Yes? Okay, before we announce the winners of this year's contest, we still have to give one award to a very brilliant young talent who has presented his work in this very conference. And I'm talking about Vitor Ilidio from Brazil, who won last year's first prize in the architecture section.
Okay, very, very briefly, because lunch is getting cold. No, we simply would like to explain the criteria for the decision. As I said yesterday, this year we had much more project than last year, and we had a very good qualities of projects, so it was extremely hard to take a decision, because unfortunately the very prizes were only two, because the prize is not only the diploma that is wonderfully made and written in Latin by, I don't remember the name of
Valentino.
Yeah,
there he is.
Eccolo, Valentini is the author of the diploma, so it's handmade. But the very prize is the possibility to travel to Frascati, the next conference. With the ticket, the hospitality offered by the Accademia, you can understand that in a conference like this, where no one other institution but the Accademia gave 1 cent in the last 3 years, not 1 cent, it is not that possible to give a word to all the participants that enroll with the really very good projects. As for the urbanism, we took in consideration the credibility of the project at the urban level, which means that we took in consideration not only the master plan, but the way we were allowed to walk through the project with a series of vignettes, with the views that will really bring us inside the building, the project, to understand not only the urban fabric, but also the coherence between the urban fabric and the architecture that is proposed, and the way these projects were matching the character of the place to work in continuity with the places. While for the architecture, we had many projects with a very beautiful facade composition, but when we were analyzing the plans, many of these projects were appearing not that developed as we were thinking about, in the sense that a project, as I said earlier, is not only the facade, but is the way we can imagine how we can use this building, how the structure can make this building credible. So we were fighting with ourselves, because sometimes it's not so easy to say to someone, you know, this is not the winner because this is not working, because obviously we took in consideration this project almost as a real professional project, without considering that many of these projects are also made by students. But as a faculty, you know, our duty is to bring people also to land on this planet and understand that between the fantasy, the dreams, and the real life, there are oceans. And it's not a warning message, obviously, because it's horrible to give this kind of warning message to all these beautiful projects. But we were forced to select only one project per category. And then we decided also some honorable mention, because we were feeling too guilty.
So indeed, out of the feeling of guilt and possibly not being able to choose, really, we have decided to give an honorable mention for the Young Talents Contest. This year's title is Humanitas and the Harmony of Place, which is the title of the conference, this year's conference. And for the architecture section, the honorable mention goes to Nikolai Grigorevsky from Russia. And Nikolai will be able to come next year to the conference and perhaps give also a little talk about this project. Next, I would like to announce and I hope they are online and they can hear us saying all this. The winner of the architecture section for this year's Young Talents Contest is Jack Hanscom, who, as we understood, was not originally an architect, but brings to the field a varied background and an artistic background. And above all, what really impressed us was the sensitivity with which he has created this project, which is a full-blown architect's project, and indeed shows also a variety of other talents. And this is why we have selected Jack Hanscom. Well done, and we will wait for you next year to present this to the full during the conference of next year. We now pass to the urban design section, and we have honorable mentions too here for the urban design section. We have Jacob Ring from Apollodorus Architecture, and this is an amazing project. We heard a little bit about this project already through a presentation that was done, I believe, in our first conference by Mark Wilson-Jones. Last year, exactly. And so it is something that we were very familiar with, and something that is quite impressive in its development. Well done, Jacob, and next year you'll be hopefully among us to tell us more. We also have another honorable mention. This goes to Riccardo Buratti. And again, wonderful concept, wonderful ideas about public spaces combined with private spaces. This is something that is incredibly well drawn, and so we decided to give you an honorable mention. As you can see, it is rather difficult to choose one winner among such beautiful projects that have been submitted, and there were several more. And now to the winner of the urban design section, who is Nadia Samir Rincon. One has to say that the Rincon sisters rule, because Miriam, who presented her amazing project for the requalification of Xochimilco, she could not be here this morning. She had to take a plane, and she was the winner of last year, and so she got to present. And next year, we'll have hopefully both sisters again, and this time it'll be Nadia to present her project. Well done, Nadia, and we hope to see you in person next year. Okay, I just wanted to make a practical announcement for logistically. We now will have lunch, and then our program continues after lunch at 3 with a presentation by Stefania Zappanico of the festival Architettura Picta. And after that, me and Bart Urban will do a little bit of a presentation about Poikile and about the developments. And this goes, is a bit of a continuum with what we heard this morning, as we would really like to become a bit of a network of these schools that work in a certain manner. And so we have already started, as you heard very well from Ettore already. You've seen also the projects. We've already started this year with the Summer School of Architecture. This summer school is not the first one we do. It's the first one in architecture, but it's not the first one we do. We have done several summer schools of the visual arts and painting, because the Poikile project is indeed a school, a full-blown school that invests energy and incredible teaching forces for the rebirth of the visual arts and architecture. And so we'll present that to you this afternoon. And then after that, we will have a workshop with a director of the Poikile school, namely Leonid Ilyukin, whose work you've already seen in person. Okay? So now, and then of course, the grand finale is the concert by the choir Tirtharion, headed by our professor Özseb Toth, also known as, or better known as Eusebius. And he directs our students music and Latin, Greek, and ancient Greek poetry is a way for our students to learn even better and learn the metrics. And you will be hopefully amazed at the beauty of what they do and what they produce. Okay, so I would say we go for lunch now, and we'll meet back here at 3. Okay.